Republican Senator John Cornyn gave his opinion about eliminating the filibuster, saying that it is, quote, the lazy way out. Take a look at this.
I don't particularly like it when the minority filibusters legislation I'd like to see passed. But what that means, it's an invitation and really a command to us to roll up our sleeves and work harder to try to find common ground. Really, if you think about it, eliminating the filibuster is a lazy way of legislating because it means you don't have to do the hard work. You don't have to build bipartisan consensus. You don't have to worry about stabilizing our laws so that they don't change dramatically every 2 years or every 4 years, depending on who's in charge.
Okay, so what he just rambled about there was a bunch of jargon, a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of bullshit, to be frank with you. And I'm going to debunk it right now. So he starts off by saying that, well, I don't like it when the minority party filibusters and I can't pass the kind of legislation I want to get passed. Well, first of all, Mr. John Cornyn, I'm actually happy when they filibuster the legislation that you want to get passed, because the legislation that you want to get passed is anti what the people want. So first and foremost, I'm thankful for that. Secondly, he says that the filibuster is an invitation, more so actually a command, he says, for them as leaders to work harder and find common ground. No, that's not what it is. No, the filibuster is a way to block another party from passing legislation that they want to pass. That's literally it. It's no command to work harder and find common ground. When have they ever done that? And when they do it, it's always on the terms of what the Republicans want. And if you're a Democrat, you fucking hate it. If you're a progressive or a lefty, you fucking hate it. So that's not good. And this is my favorite. He says that it's a lazy way of legislating. You don't have to do the groundwork and work on a bipartisan consensus. So basically, for those of you that aren't aware, Washington has, now that the Democrats is in office, when the Republicans were in office, fuck being bipartisan, we're passing whatever the fuck we want. We want tax cuts. We want to go to war. We want to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're doing all this shit. We don't give a fuck. But since a Democrat is in office now all of a sudden it's all about bipartisanship and working together. And don't pass legislation that we don't agree with. You see how the tune changes when it's a different party in office? Yeah, me too. So he says it's a lazy way and you don't have to do the groundwork. Actually, Mr. John, I would argue the opposite. I think that keeping the filibuster in place, at least the way that it is, to where that it's not the old talking filibuster, maybe even having it in place, period, is the lazy way of legislating. You want to know why? Because without it, actual good bills would be passed, most likely. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of Democrats in the Senate right now that are extremely corrupt, that maybe if the filibuster wasn't even in place and we still had the same kind of split in the Senate that we have, they would still rise up to block things like the PRO Act and the For the People Act and, other types of legislation that, progressive legislation that the Democrats want to get passed. But that's just my point. He finishes off there by saying that with the filibuster in place, we don't have to worry about stabilizing laws so they don't change dramatically when different parties get in power. When I would argue we actually need the exact opposite. We need for the laws to change dramatically. I don't like the way our healthcare system is set up. I think we need Medicare for all. That's a dramatic change to our healthcare system, because right now we have for-profit health insurance companies robbing innocent Americans of their healthcare, of their money. Okay? And many other things, in fact. The minimum wage is still not a living wage. Raising the minimum wage from what it is $7.25 right now, that's a poverty wage. Raising it to a living wage would be a dramatic change. We need dramatic change. You see what this is? He's taking the lazy way out because he doesn't want to change anything because he's making a lot of dough and his donors are making a lot of dough. And we know that our political parties are incredibly corrupt and they're bought and owned by big corporations and big pharma and the military industrial complex. So they don't want anything drastic to happen because the filibuster keeps dramatic change from occurring. Imagine if the filibuster was eliminated and the Democrats were to pass the PRO Act, and the unions were to get bolstered, and as an effect of that, the American people were able to unionize. That would spell doom for the corporations like Amazon that are anti-union. Yeah, it would. Imagine if the For the People Act got passed, and voting became easier. They wouldn't like that kind of change. Imagine if, one day we just so happen to actually pass Medicare for all and give everybody health care. So the filibuster is, by nature, anti-democracy, and it keeps change from happening. Okay? And that's actually what they want. And he's, whether he realizes it or not, is arguing, basically against his own point. He's taking the lazy way out. Eliminating the filibuster isn't taking the lazy way out. How? I thought that majority rules. The filibuster makes it to where that doesn't occur. But, this is totally expected. These people expose themselves all the time, even when they don't mean to. This stuff isn't easy to see through. They're horrible liars. Really awful liars. The filibuster is a command to work harder and find common ground. Yeah, whenever the Democrats and Republicans find common ground, it's never for anything that you and me want. It's always for endless war, more deregulation, more tax cuts, and more cuts to social safety net programs, among many other incredibly corrupt and awful things.